Hi guys, today we're gonna discuss about chapter 8, impasse, strikes and dispute resolutions in terms of labor relations, striking balance using a McGraw-Hill. The author will be John W. Butt. Excuse me. There's quite a number of learning objectives here. There's about 5 of them. Explore the option of resolve bargaining dispute and impasse, understanding different type of strike and lockout in labor relationship, discuss the controversy surrounding the use of strike replacement, identify the type of pressure tactics beyond strike and lockout, and what is being used more frequently in the past, and compare the major third-party dispute resolution mechanism in terms of strengths and weaknesses. So let's start with the introduction here. In the bargaining process, we do not have where negotiators usually do not have reached agreement. The NRA, the National Labor Relations Act, this is in the U.S. based law, that the good faith bargaining obligations does not compel either party to agree or to proposal or require making a concessions. That is based on this law. So the U.S. and Canada has the same kind of law. Bargaining impasse can occur when labor and management negotiators fail to agree on mutual acceptable terms and conditions of employment. The bargaining impasse are rare. The bargaining dispute, impasse, method of derivation are central topic of labor relationship. This is what happens. We have an impending strike by TTC striker last week, but it is being postponed. So it has always been an issue between labor and management in this part of the world, North America, not only North America, in Europe as well as in Asia. Possibility of bargaining dispute underlie all labor negotiation because the threat of affect powers. Okay, bargaining in good faith to an impasse fulfill each side legal bargaining obligations. Major strike can have devastating consequences for workers, employees, and the public. Some dispute resolution methods can be used before an impasse is reached, and others are designed to prevent impasses. The method used to resolve any dispute is defined in a feature of the different labor relation system or law. Okay, let me just move this on the other side so it doesn't disturb the presentations. In terms of career dispute labor relationship, there's interest disputes pertain of conflict of interest. Usually higher wages versus lower labor cost. This is the most common one, wages. And then seniority-based layoff versus merit-based layoff. This is the second one. In union-based, seniority is very highly regarded. But in the non-union base, there's always merit-based kind of layoff. Broad unions input into major issues such as strict management right to conduct business without interference. Okay, right dispute, disagreement over whether someone right have been violated, and then conflict over the application and interpretation contract such as grievances. This is going to be a next chapter. Strikes occur and lockout when employee refuses to work until employer changes position on one or more issue, an expression of protest and distractions, frequently intended to pressure on the employer by withholding the labor. Striker 6 seeks to increase employer cost disagreement by depriving the employer of profit in the public sector or its ability to satisfy the demand of taxpayers and voters. Again, I mentioned to you in the beginning of this slide, this presentation, there is an impending strike last week at the TTC employee, but it's been hold off. And now there's also an impending strike in Canada here for LCBO employees for again a negotiation in terms of collective agreement has not been reached. This is mostly happens all the time with many of the governments, some quasi government company. Excuse me. The type of strike and lockout. Let's call economic strike. Employee has to strike to win better wages, benefits, and work rules. Stem from bargaining past over mandatory bargaining when the union contract has negotiated. Locked out. Employer can initiate rather workers initiate work stoppage during a bargaining impasses. Okay. Employer law tell the workers not to return until they agree for an employee's term. This has happened many times in the car industry, in the Ford, GM, as well as Chrysler. And then the unfair labor strike, a strike to protest an employer unfair labor practice. Okay, that is also another thing that can happen all the time. Recognition strike, when employees are striking to force employer to recognize and bargain with their unions. That's a recognition strike. There's another one, sympathy strike, striking to support other workers who are on strike. So strike on a strike. And then wildcat strike. Most union contracts contain no strike clause prohibiting work stoppage over grievances or during the lifetime of a contract. Wildcat strikes. Jurisdictional strike, when union strike to force an employer to sign certain work to its member. Jurisdictional. Okay. There's also national emergency strike. The Railway Labor Act empowered the President of the United States to create a Presidential Emergency Board to if a strike would threaten substantial to interrupt interstate commerce to a degree such as deprive any section of the country of essential transportation service. I remember this when I was a student in 1984, 1955, during the Reagan administration. There was a strike in U.S. for air control traffic office, air controller traffic strike. So what happens that Reagan is a die-hard Republican. He fired the whole air traffic control union. So everybody got fired there. So he replaced everyone with the for people from the armed forces, from the air force. So that's what I've done in the past. Okay, this is he uses presidential emergency to fire the whole union. That is after that there's a decline in union in the U.S. after the Reagan during the Reagan years. In Canada, we have this kind of emergency board. We call it essential service. Example, what are the essential service? Like police, and then teachers, and then also firefighters. If you are a member of this type of unions, example, like police officers, you cannot do a strike. They can have the government, the prime minister can order, or the governor of the province can order essential back to work kind of legislations. Okay, that's one of the good example what has happened in U.S. and in Canada. The legal treatment of strike depends on the type of strike, such as economic strike, unfair labor practice are protected by Section 7 of NLRA. This is U.S. law, okay? Because this is based on the U.S. law. We have a different law system, Canada. I don't have the detail there, but as soon as I had it, and I will post it with you guys. The strike over grievances are considered a protected activity under NLRA unless there is a no strike clause. Employee who participates in a wildcat strike can often be disciplined. You cannot do a wildcat, okay? Employee can be disciplined. Jurisdiction strike are prohibited by NRA. So union can be ordered to cease and desist from such a strike. Strike by federal government workers and many public sector are prohibited. Because why? This is an essential service. Okay. A key aspect of strike is a picket line. Strikes, strikers and their leaders support a march outside the strike. Employees occasion to publicize their dispute. This has happened with the nurses. It has happened with the teachers and the teachers aide. I think student assistant in the York University. It has happened many times. I seen a news there. And then convince the public not to protest the business and workers not to cross the picket line. Create solidarity among strikers. Build support for their causes. In economic unfair labor practice strike, picketing is the legal, but some has legal limitations. Picket line misconduct such as violence is not protected by NLRA, so you cannot do violence and vandalism there. It's criminal, this one, okay? It can result in discipline and loss recall right at the end of strike and potential criminal prosecution. That's to make sure, guys. I mentioned this many times. Is subject to criminal prosecution. If you are here in Canada, make sure you have a good clean record. If you are criminal record, you are most likely not be able to work in many of the major companies and financial institutions because they do a background check. And you cannot be a permanent resident as well as Canadian citizen. Okay, the decline in strike activities. The U.S. strike activity in the early 21st century is at all-time low. Major strike and lockout plummeted from 187 to about 22 days. So it's going down the hill here in terms of strike. The industry day that they lost due to strike is involving at least 1,000 workers, amount to 101% of total working days. Strike rate, all negotiations are less than 1% in recent years. Why? Why there's such a decline? Because not bargaining power decline because it's the fact state of strike, not actual one. Maybe because the greater use of strike replacement. So what are the happens in the terms of the charts here? Here is all the way on the 70s is at the height, and then in the second and eighth, the height one is actually in the 50, the 50. Then second one will be in the 70s, 5 here, and then going downhill afterwards. Okay. Strike replacement. Employee used or hired to do the work of individual on strike are called. Temporary strike replacement workers are discharged at the end of the strike. And remember, when you do a strike, you don't get paid. That's illegal as well. Permanent strike displacement workers who continue to their position after the strike ends. Example here, based on McKay Doctrine after the famous Supreme Court NLRB versus McKay Radio and Telegraph 1938 ruling. This is based on the US law again. Permanent strike replacement workers continue their position after the strike ends. So the workers, after even their strike, they can remain employed at the existing positions. Okay. Replacement worker is an unfair labor practice strike. The McKay Doctrine establishes legality of using permanent strike replacement in economic strike. Other court decisions have determined that employees cannot use permanent replacement during an unfair labor practice strike. Unfair labor practice strikes are entitled to immediate reinstatement. So that's the key part in this strike replacement. Banning the use of permanent strike to make the US is most likely most other industrial democracy was the labor movement top legislative between 1980 and 1995. For the pro-labor, workers are essentially fired for striking, so other workers are free to strike. That's from the labor arguments. And destruction of the rights right is to disrupt the balance of U.S. labor relations system and give employees vastly greater powers. For the pro-business argumentations is that the current system is balanced and there is banning strike replacement would favor unions. That's from the pro-business argument, and the use of permanent strike replacement is what to maintain competitiveness, not busting unions. That is the argument. Okay. And then replacement workers in lockout. Lockout is initiated by employer rather than the employees. There's two kind of lockout. Defensive lockout occur when employer lock out employees to prevent losses from expected strike. For offensive lockout occurs when the employer takes the initiative to pressure union for more favorable settlements. To maintain balance between employees and employers, hiring permanent employees is not allowed. Okay, other pressure tactic here. Union believe that employers have escalated economic warfare through the use of strike replacement. Union have responded by searching for alternatives to strikes such as boycott, work slowdown, and corporate campaigns. Throughout the legality of such tactics mix, they have become more important and frequent in the 80s, since 80s. Okay, boycott is another way of doing things. Campaign to encourage company customers to stop doing with it. Primary employer, the company for whom the workers involved, is in the bargaining disputed work. Secondary employers, an organization that does not employ the workers who are involved in the dispute but has some business tie with the primary employers. The secondary boycott targets secondary employers. The work slowdown try to pressure employers to impose work through lower productivity, but without employees leaving the job and going to strike. And then there's a work to rule campaign. Employees do their work by exactly following the process. This is the most common thing that the Canada has used. Work to rule campaign in the essential service area. What are the essential service area? Like in the utilities, public service. Example, what is there? Policing. Okay, that's number one. Teaching is another one. Okay, and then transportation, mass transportation, that's another one. Work to rule. Another pressure tactic, another method, engaging in work slowdown, and the use of partial and quick intermittent strike. The goal of this job action is to disrupt employer operations. As this is surprise and very short, it's difficult for employees to hire strike replacement. Another one is looming here. The strike is the one in the Canadian Border Service Agency, CBAP. They also starting to strike because of the labor dispute. I believe they have for they announced it in the public. They're going to strike in. I heard it over the radio this last week that they're going to strike in July. One of those things, the reason to disrupt, to disturb the employees' operations. Can you imagine if the border guard in between Canada and US crossing, the Canadians set on strike? That'll be a very long wait there, the traffic jam. It takes you. I remember going from US to Canada is usually averaged about 30 minutes. If it's a strike, it's going to take hours, 3 or 4 hours at least. Other pressure tactic, corporate campaign seek to bolster inside tactics with external pressure directed at corporate headquarters and outsiders. Labor supporters see a corporate campaign as an important tool for pressuring corporations who seem to hold power in global economy. Critics see corporate campaign as media and regulators to benefit unionized workers. Some labor activities have criticized corporate campaign for being disconnected and rank and file workers. There are third-party resolutions. The resolution mechanism is remediation, arbitration, and fact-finding. Or can also use the neutral third party to settle bargaining strike, such as with the goal of avoiding costly strike. In private sector, the resolution mechanism is voluntary. In public sector, it is compulsory. That's the difference. Okay, public sector is compulsory. There are three of them to negotiate. In terms of the third-party resolutions, this is degree of third-party control on the outcome. Low and low, it will be fact-finding. This is third-party control over process. Low and high here, degree. Arbitrations, high and low, mediations, and here is mediation and arbitration, high and high. So usually negotiation using this mediation and arbitration strategy. Okay, third-party dispute resolution. A mediator has high level of control over the negotiating process, but not the outcome. Arbitrator has high level of control over the outcome in not negotiating process. Okay, not negotiating negotiator, not negotiating process. It has to be between the two parties. Mediators can be either independent practitioner or full-time employees of mediation agency at the federal level or state government. Okay, arbiters either full-time, self-employed arbiter, or lawyers. Usually, lawyers are university professors who arbitrage on part-time basis. Most of the time, it's lawyers because they know the rules and the regulations. Okay, dispute resolution process. And if you're a third party, the mediator will have negotiation avoid to resolve the impasse of the by reaching an agreement. Okay, mediation is essential in assisted negotiation. In practice, mediation involves a series of meetings with mediator and some joint meeting and some individual meeting between union and management. Okay, that's the key part. Mediate between two parties, conflicting parties. Mediation process involves several stages. Okay, in the process of mediation, this is the process of mediation: setting the stage, do a problem solving, and focus the mediator on achieving workable agreement. That's the key part. Achieving a workable agreement. And then depending on the sector, mediation can be voluntary or mandatory. The next one, interest arbitration, resolved by neutral third party. It involves by issuing settlement that is binding to the employer and union and employees. Hearing is held, evidence presented in each side, and I will issue a decisions making. Interest arbitrations, however, is to resolve interest dispute that resulted in new contractual terms of governing wages and terms and condition of the employment. The uncertainty of arbitrary choice and loss of control by the negotiator over the settlement is intended to motivate negotiator to reach their own negotiated agreement without resorting to arbitrations. This is the interest arbitration. There's two forms here. The conventional arbitration is not constrained in deciding the settlement term. Okay, there's a possibility risk of creating chilling effect, and there's a probability also because the rate is supposed to encourage settlement without needing the arbitration. the final offer arbitration, the arbitrator must choose between the union final offer and employee final offer. The total package or issue by issue, initiated to the reduced ceiling effect by making extreme position riskier than this may be overly optimistic. Okay. Another concern, there's a narcotic effect, is that negotiators may become addicted to dependent on arbitration. This is addiction to that. Allow negotiators to pass the buck and blame arbitrators for unfavorable settlements. That's the key part, narcotic effect. Interest arbitration is voluntary in the private sector, but it is mandatory in public sector. Always mandatory in public sector arbitration, okay? In fact-finding strategy, another third-party dispute method. This is the one of the method. A neutral party is called to do a fact-finding, investigate the bargaining process and issue, and non-binding recommendations to settlement. But it does not guarantee any resolution. Also, it does assist the negotiator. Excuse me. In fact-finding, even with the binding award, the fact-finding report ideally have to resolve dispute in three ways, such as establishing a set of amended settlement. A fact-finding report can let union management negotiate safe face in making concession, and making fact-finding report public can use as a glare of publicity to push the party to settlement. This is mostly many times happens all the time between TTC and any public related works in Canada here, from LCBO to nurses to teachers strike. I remember that. For the last 25 years I stay in Canada, there's a lot of negotiation and public announcements between the two camps, between the government or the employer versus the employee unions. What's the best resolution method? The no method is best. Along all dimensions, each has its own alternative and trade-off. Okay, it's strike lockout can be particularly inefficient and costly to employees and employees to the public. So if there's a lockout, there's everybody lost. That's basically what it is. Example, I'm going to give example TTC. If TTC, the employee is doing a strike, the public cannot use the transportations, and the employer, government also lose the revenue and reputation as well in terms of management. So that has happened in the past. Yeah, that's no good. Everybody lost. Mediation can help negotiator, but does not guarantee a resolution. Like finding, like significant control over both negotiating and process and outcome. So this is basically the end of this chapter. Again, this is owned by McGraw-Hill, who is the copyright owner of this particular slide. Okay, so I'm going to close this chapter 8. I'm going to post this in YouTube as well as in Puzzle so you can practice this. Okay, thank you. Bye.